I tell you.
All right.
Welcome to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, joined by my co-host, Mr. Javier Perez. Today we have some very special guests, and actually they don't even need introductions, but I'm going to introduce them anyway. We have Mr. Adrian Garcia, the former Harris County Sheriff, and Richard Reyes, also known as Pancho Claus. So let's get right to it. We're right here in the Houston East End. We're like 1 mile east of downtown. Beautiful weather. I'll tell you what, beats.
Yeah, it's getting hot. It beats the rain.
It beats the rain. That's correct.
That's true.
But unfortunately, we have brothers and sisters that have suffered great loss in the floods. And so I want to extend my condolences to anybody that has flooded their home in the past couple weeks. Because I'll tell you what, it's been flooding for how long now? A month and a half?
Yeah.
2 months.
Soggiest time in a long time.
I've never seen anything like this on the west side and the north side as well. I remember back, I guess, which hurricane was it that came in, or tropical storm that came in? Allison. I remember downtown being flooded, and all the tunnel system being flooded. And fortunately, that didn't happen again, where downtown was flooded. So not to say that it's less fortunate over there, but you know what I mean. It happens to be that we have the west side this time and the north side this time.
That's right. That's exactly right. You know, during Allison, we just learned a great deal, and we didn't have a lot of measures in the downtown and the medical center area that we now have today, which is what is mitigating the possibility of flooding this time around. But the water knows no boundaries, and so it's Marlin. God bless those folks out there. And then the north side area has been hit very, very severely. And obviously the west side always gets its unfair share.
Yeah, and I will also say that, you know, we are somewhat fortunate here in Houston. You know, we get tornadoes, we get hurricanes, we get the whole bit. Hurricane season just started, okay? I hope that we don't have a hurricane.
Right.
Okay. It could be worse.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
You know, so we're expecting, what, 6 to 12 hurricanes this season?
That's right.
That's a lot of hurricanes.
You know, and Florida's getting raked over by tropical storm already.
Yep.
Yeah.
First one they're already hitting, so.
Yeah.
El Niño's at work.
So maybe the worst is yet to come, unfortunately. Yeah. So we just don't know.
I tell you, Ben, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to get my little duck inner tube.
Right.
On standby.
Yeah.
But you know, Ben, real quickly, this is an opportunity to remind folks that, you know, just because you've never flooded doesn't mean you won't now. And then secondly, if you don't have flood insurance because you've never needed it, doesn't mean you don't need it now. And so those are two important things to keep in mind.
Are you selling insurance now?
I am not selling. You know, to come to think of it, I ought to get into that. I'd have made some money here recently. But you have to think about those things today. And the topography of the Houston area has changed dramatically over the last 20, 30 years because of all the development. And that's what's causing these flooding situations in areas that typically have never dealt with it. And so don't take those things for granted.
You know what, Ben, and to tell you how long we've been talking about this, you remember probably, I guess it's been about a month ago that you had the head of the Harris County Flood Control District here, and we're still talking about flooding. That was a month ago, and we're still here. So I tell you, it's going to be a hot topic for a while. And I think Adrian makes an excellent point, man. If you haven't had flood insurance doesn't cost you anything.
That's right.
I mean, it's next. It's
pennies on the dollar.
It's one nice dinner. You know what it'll cost you, and man, it's worth getting that protection.
On the upside, you know, I've had the hardest time finding contractors to do work. They are busy.
Oh, good.
Super busy. The sheetrockers, of course, the carpet layers and so forth. You can't find any right now.
Yep.
They're extremely busy. And I've even seen people from out of town working here. They come from all the way north, and they bring their crews, and they set up shop here for a couple months, easy, and to do work here. So there's going to be a lot of work available. So if you're not working right now, there's no excuse for you. There's plenty of work out there.
That's right. That's right. But former policeman, I got to think about these things. Make sure that if you're going to get a contractor, do your very best to vet them. Because we have seen all too many times when, you have these unscrupulous contractors that come in, take your money first, and then leave you still high and dry and wet.
So if Javier Perez comes to your door, don't let him in. Do not let him in. Right, Javi?
Man, yeah, if I'm a contractor, you're in trouble.
Right?
So let's talk about some serious issues. We have a presidential race, and apparently Hillary Clinton is going to be the nominee, and she's going to be going against Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everybody's talking about the anti-Trump movement because of all the comments he's made throughout the campaign. It hasn't just started. I mean, we're talking several months now. So, in your opinion, how do you see that race?
You know, I said from the very beginning, jokingly, oh, we should be happy that Trump would be the nominee. Now I'm not so sure that that was a wise remark to make, because Trump is really mobilizing some folks, and Hillary has struggled a little bit because of Bernie, and you know, we can't take for granted that people are angry at Trump and hate Trump and, you know, are going to vote against Trump. That is something that we have to really, really talk about as a community and understand where this guy's coming from. I was just watching some of the conversations that he's been having about the judge that is overseeing his Trump University case. And when challenged on why would you think that this person of Hispanic heritage, who was born in the United States, second or third generation American, would immediately gravitate towards his heritage just because you're building this wall? And all Trump would say, well, I'm building a wall. I'm building a wall. And so where this guy is coming from, it's fear, it's demagoguery, it is hate, and he has presented zero ideas from the very beginning. And the fact that he is the Republican nominee is scary.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to Republicans, and all I hear from them is that, hey, he's our nominee, we're going to get behind him. And so that tells me that he is no longer a joke. He is now a serious issue for all Americans to contend with. And, you know, you may not like Hillary for whatever reason, but you know what? She is light years better than Trump can be. And her points about him having access to the nuclear button, launch codes, you know, you don't take that thing lightly.
Yeah, that's scary.
That is very scary. And especially when you look at the conversation about him and this judge overseeing his Trump University case, and the way he approaches that conversation, imagine if you were a foreign head of state arguing with him about some encroachment on foreign waters, a flyover or something of that nature. And Trump is, you know, the way I see him behaving is that he's like to say, well, you don't agree with me? Well, there's the button here. We're going to see who's right.
Can you see that face off, Kim Jong-il and Donald Trump?
Right.
Holy smokes, we're dead.
The two hairdos at battle.
I'll tell you what, I think it's very scary considering what he does say. I mean, it's pretty much anti-Latino.
Yeah.
Or
hey,
anti-Muslim.
haven't you heard? All Latinos love him. It's
Oh,
great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
They all love him. Hey,
Yeah.
it's great.
I don't know about that.
Well, that's what he says. And he says he's leading the polls among Hispanics.
Well,
I mean, I don't
those
know
are
what
secret.
kind of- who his
Those are
pollsters
secret.
are.
Exactly. Those are secret polls. But you know, Ben, you got me into citizenship, teaching citizenship classes years ago, and I will for always be grateful to you for that experience. It was been one of the most rewarding experiences. But I would venture to tell folks tonight that if you are not registered to vote, if you have someone in your home that is eligible but not yet taking the naturalization process, you know, one is that it is imperative that we not take Trump for granted. Secondly, don't assume Trump is going to be the last person into this political realm. There are people watching that are looking at him and saying, you know what, I feel the same way. I got no ideas, but I'm just as angry as he is. And so, you know what, I'm going to throw my hat in for governor. I'm going to throw my hat in for mayor. I'm going to throw in my hat for Congress. I'm going to throw in my hat for the state Senate, U.S. Senate. I'm going to throw my hat in for, well, the hat's already in for sheriff. There's a mentality out there that he's inspiring. And he has been compared to Hitler. And I think all the evidence rather, supports the fact that this is eerie in terms of the comparisons between the two. And so do not take this lightly. It's Trump today. It could be very well someone else in the next election, just a few months down the road.
How many people that you know have been sued as much as Trump? That's pretty scary because, you know, I've been involved in a couple of lawsuits where we're filing against contractors that don't pay the small guys. That's exactly what I see Mr. Trump. He's the big guy, and he refuses to pay the little guys. And that's one way to do it. You prolong the court case as long as you can. Before you know it, they've dried their funds.
You bankrupt.
You bankrupt them, exactly. Right. And so that just turns me off about Trump altogether. The fact that he had a university that would give away bogus degrees, because that's basically what they were.
That's exactly right.
Bogus degrees. And take students' monies, okay? Students, people that are barely surviving. I'm sure there was some rich folks involved in that too, but most students are poor, you know, and they don't have any money to spend. And for them to spend every dollar they had.
You know, Ben, I had someone very close to me that paid that $30,000 to go to that Trump University.
Wow.
And, you know, a lot of it was, you know, from what I see, I haven't sat down and asked him about it. I mean, hey, what do you think about this now? Because I even went to a few of his classes with him just to sit in on it. And he did go into that line of work, and he's still working it. But, you know, I say, now with all this Trump, you know, the Trump University stuff coming out, was it worth the $30,000 you paid? And I don't think he would tell me that it was. I don't think it was, you know, and at the time he said, oh, I could either buy a new car, or I could go to Trump U, and he went to Trump U. Should have got the car.
but you know, let me just go back to my point previously, and that is that this individual, by virtue of his supposed billionaire capacity and his supposed real estate success and all of his business, you know, wherewithal, this is inspiring some folks. And he is selling a brand of success and achievement and wealth that does have the attention of individuals. Your friend or whoever it may be said, you know what, that guy is inspiring to me. I've watched The Apprentice, and the way he approached those episodes was always similar to this campaign: belittling, just arrogant, condescending. And that's a reality show, and it's not detracted from his campaign. So this is who he is in business and in life and in politics, and so we have to take this guy seriously. And so if you're not registered to vote, if you haven't been thinking about this election, and if you're thinking that someone else is going to handle this, don't assume that. We are all going to have a very personal responsibility and seeing this election go the right way.
Let's talk about the next person in line, the VP nominations, okay? Now, there's been a lot of talk about our friend from the former mayor of San Antonio. What's his name again?
Castro.
Julian Castro as being the VP for the Democratic side. For the Republican side, it's been a couple names thrown out. I'm not sure who's out there. Have you heard anything?
No, I mean, I've heard another, I think it's the Secretary of Commerce that has emerged who is another Latino who has emerged as a possible choice for Hillary as well. And so it's good that Latinos are a very active part of her conversation. I still think that Castro would bring, you know, some movement in Texas, although Texas is still fairly solidly red. I think Castro could help in mobilizing some progress in that regard. But the fact that Latinos are emerging in her conversation for a VP search, I like that. On the Trump side, it's everywhere from I don't care to be, I don't want to be, to people I've never heard of possibly being nominees for him. But then you got to remember that he's also got another uphill battle. He may be the nominee, but we're hearing that there's going to still be an independent candidate coming in on the Republican side to try to take the election. So it'll be an interesting convention to watch.
So we'll see what happens in November.
I tell you, this is the weirdest election cycle we've ever been through, man. I just cannot believe that we are where we are today.
It is.
I mean, we thought everyone thinking that Trump was a joke when he announced. Well, they're not laughing anymore. You know, this man's a serious candidate. He's viable, and we could, if we're not careful, we could pretty much see him sitting in the White House.
Exactly. Think about all the policies. Think about, watch his success. And as you were saying, he's choked out the little guy, and he's gotten to where he's at by having a ready team of lawyers that know how to keep him out of bankruptcy or put him into bankruptcy when it's convenient. And so this is a guy that isn't going to care about a struggling community's challenges. He is going to approach this in a very, very high-end business perspective. And I don't think he's going to care about the casualties that he causes along the way. So this is a very interesting cycle. I've always been concerned. I jokingly said, "Oh, we should hope that he would be the nominee." I started eating those words very, very soon into the election process because I saw what was happening. Every candidate that he had up against him on the Republican side, he just took them out, not by beating them in policy ideas or economic development ideas, but simply by labeling them, turning them into a caricature, and then just stomping them into the ground. This is the leader that the Republican side is putting forth in the United States presidential election. The most powerful man in the free world. And, we cannot allow that to happen, not because he's a Republican, but because he is of the mindset that he is, that makes him, to me, dangerous.
So let's talk about Harris County, because this past election, we had about 330,000 Republicans and about 220,000+ Democrats. So it was about 100,000 voters of difference. Now, how do Democrats overcome that?
I think that, number one, in this presidential cycle, there will always be an uptick on the Democratic side. It helped me in my 2008 election, but it was tighter in the 2012 election because there's an incredible amount of anti-President Obama sentiment. And in this election, I'm not sure what's going to happen because, as I said, thinking that Republicans are going to step away from Trump, I'm not necessarily hearing that. Obviously, people aren't excited about the fact that he's their nominee, but I'm not hearing people saying, I'm going to go vote for Hillary. So we have to be careful about that.
Adrian, let's break down your election 2008 when Obama's first presidential run, when he won the presidency. What was the breakdown then? How many Democrats voted? How many Republicans? Do you remember that? Wasn't it more Democrats in that?
Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, President Obama.
In Harris County.
Yeah, President Obama carried Harris County. I beat the president in that election. So it was a very historic election. But the difference in this is that in that election, Hillary and Secretary Clinton and then Senator Obama had a very, very healthy but competitive race. It was exciting it was exciting for the party as a whole. The opportunity to have the first African American, the first opportunity to have the first woman. In this election cycle on the Democratic side, it's a little different. You have Bernie, who is, I call him our Trump on the Democratic side, and then Hillary, who she is still, the opportunity to see the first woman in office, but there's a little bit of a drag on her campaign, and it's lacking a little bit of excitement as I'm hearing from folks talking. People are liking what Bernie is saying, but he is attracting a very narrow demographic. So if she can get this campaign on fire and the way she had it in 2008, then I think, it's smooth sailing for literally every Democrat on the ticket.
I know there are a lot of Republicans on the ticket now, and I've even heard in the sheriff's race that's very worried about that straight Democratic Party
They should
vote.
be. They should, especially the darn sheriff.
Yeah.
The acting sheriff, and I want to be clear to say that because he was not elected sheriff, he was appointed by Commissioner's Court. He is up for election, not re-election.
Yeah.
In fact, I corrected James Pinkerton in his article when he said, "Oh, he's up for re-election." No, he's not up for re-election. He's up for election.
That's right.
And the fact that this guy has taken us back to the pre-Tommy Thomas days, who was the sheriff that I beat, is imperative that people understand that, yes, we can have all the conversations we want about the president. Thankfully, we won't see Trump, anytime soon if he were to become the president. And you won't deal with the president locally. Most of us will never see that person, whoever it may be. But you sure will feel and need to have access to your sheriff and have a sheriff who has a good perspective on public safety and criminal justice. And so I think that's the guy, that guy is going to be Ed Gonzalez, and we cannot allow him to lose either.
So getting back to Harris County, the overall picture, I found that there was a lot of negativity, if you will, within the Republican Party, them fighting against each other. You had the party chairman had some stiff competition.
That's right.
And so I saw them splintered, if you will, for lack of a better word. Now, if they're splintered going into November election, how does that affect the election overall?
The Harris County Republican politics, as I've been told, and I guess as I've watched, it's a slate election process. And the Democratic side still tends to be a populist process. But on the Republican side, it looks like if you get the Hotze endorsement, you get the all the other individuals that seem to run, a slate, then you're going to be their candidate. I want to believe that the community is going to be smarter than that. And I think there's a number of good government Republicans in there, and I believe those are the people who voted for me when I first became sheriff and when I was able to win my reelection. And I think that community is who we have to make sure that our candidates appeal to. Kim Ogg is also on the ballot for district attorney. We have to look at how criminal justice in this area begins. And ultimately, if you have a DA that says, we're not going to persecute personal amounts of marijuana, we're not going to prosecute trace cases, we're going to deal with the mentally ill in a different and more humane way. When you have that person set policy, then law enforcement across Harris County has to fall in line. And so when you think about all these things, this is where I think good government Republicans become very critical. As you were asking earlier, how do we make this election happen? Ed Gonzalez, Kim Ogg, others have to make sure that they're appealing to the good government voters.
It's going to be a very interesting election. Very interesting election season.
I haven't heard anything on Kim Ogg. Kim Ogg's a dear friend of mine. I know she worked with you at one time. She was with the Mayor's Anti-Gang Office.
That's correct. She was the first director. That I became the second director, and then she went on to be the director of Crime Stoppers, and then she went into private practice.
Mm-hmm.
I've sat with her. I've listened to her ideas, and I think her time has come. She had a good shot in her last election. It didn't work out for her, but I think coupled with the whole scheme of the party or the election as a whole, with Trump and Hillary on as being the center, the focus for this election cycle, I think it's going to bode well for her and for Ed. But again, it's not something we can take for granted.
Absolutely not.
I worry about the undervote. People are going to focus in on the presidential election and then go home. Folks, go vote whoever you're going to vote for president, but don't forget your DA, don't forget your sheriff. You have to pay attention to the down ballots.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
No, we see undervotes all the time in the city elections.
Yeah.
So this is a different time, though. There's so many issues that are going to be affected by your vote if you don't partake in the election process. Now, let's talk about the lower level, what I call lower level races that are not as high profile. There's an election in Pasadena for state representative.
That's right.
So we have a Republican incumbent that was a state rep going against the former state rep, Ms. Marianne Perez. Now, this was a newly formed district a few years ago. And considering it's Pasadena, you would think that an Anglo would have won, but actually, surprisingly, we had a Latino.
Republican. Yeah.
We had a Latino win that race, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side.
Yep.
So it makes for a very interesting race in Pasadena. We know that the population of Hispanics has grown tremendously in Pasadena, but the voting groups, Hispanics are not up there as far as them coming out to vote in Pasadena. So it's just exciting to me to know that we have an additional Latino seat, regardless of who wins.
Yep.
It's going to be a Latino seat.
And then, as you mentioned, Pasadena, there's a possibility that there will be a Latino candidate for mayor of Pasadena. In spite of the fact that the current mayor tried to undermine the growth of the Latino electorate and political strength by eliminating one of the district seats and turning it into an at-large system. So Pasadena has changed dramatically. It is now 60% Latino, but thankfully now groups like neighborhood centers and others have been working to develop the Latino electorate. And I think that's going to be exciting for Pasadena. I think we're going to see change. It won't be the Pasadena that we remember in our day, but it will be.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah,
I
right.
remember those days, man. You did not go to parts of Pasadena if you had brown skin. You stayed away at night.
That's it.
That's right, and that is.
Are you saying they used to wear hoods?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Well, let's
the white
say
hoods?
the bed sheets weren't for sleeping.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So getting back to the mayor's race in Pasadena, now population-wise, Latinos make up what as far as electoral?
Population-wise, on the electoral side, I think it's still way down in contrast to their 60% population level. But it's growing. In my congressional race, I helped to motivate that electorate. It did grow a little bit. Now with you got a city councilman, or actually two city councilmen, I believe, and then you've got that Republican Latino on the state rep side. Marianne is being competitive. Bernie Aldape ran from the South Houston Pasadena area for that same state house seat, and so you're seeing some good movement out in that area that we typically had not seen before, and so it's exciting to see what's happening, and my hat goes off to the community leaders who have really worked that area to develop a voting strength that previously wasn't there. When I was a sheriff, I was going out there regularly to neighborhood centers because they were doing and have done a significant amount of voter registration, citizenship classes, but they've also worked hard to create this Community Leaders Academy so that people know, okay, look, you're a citizen now, you're a voting citizen now. What do you do with that? And what's your obligation? How do you make these guys that ask you for the vote work for you? Because I think typically we've elected people, but they have turned a deaf ear to the Latino community. And so my head goes off.
Not in Houston.
Right. But so my head goes off to neighborhood centers for paying attention to that and working to provide that education and that empowerment. And I think that's what's creating a lot of this exciting stuff in Pasadena.
I'll tell you what, there's another race that piques my interest. We have a constable race, Precinct 6. Victor Trevino obviously was the constable. He was replaced by Henry Martinez. Henry actually lost in the primary against Sylvia Trevino on the Democratic side.
That's right.
And then we do have, what's his name? From Richard Gonzalez on the Republican side. So we're going to have Sylvia Trevino or Richard Gonzalez as the next Precinct 6 constable.
Hold on there, Ben, because now you have Jesse Hernandez, who is running as an independent write-in candidate.
Yeah, but write-in candidates are not going to.
But it still lends to what's going on in the area.
I'm a write-in candidate for President of the United States. Would I get elected? No.
He could make a difference.
Are you going to help my mayor fix the potholes? Might give you my vote then, Ben.
So let's talk a little bit about Precinct 6. Okay, the dynamics are a little strange on the east side, unlike some other parts of the town. You have some folks that have been entrenched in the political system for many, many years. Victor Trevino was probably in office 20 plus years.
Correct.
And
His
before
wife,
him, Raul Martinez was probably, what, 30 years?
long time.
A long time,
So
absolutely.
Sylvia Trevino is obviously Victor Trevino's wife. Now, so she brings along with her Victor Trevino's what I would call support system. Mr. Gonzalez, he's been running several times already, but it's very unlikely that a Republican would win in that area, in the mostly
That's
Latino.
correct.
So you're going to see a first Latina constable, basically,
That's right.
in Precinct
That's right.
6.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right.
So,
That's exciting.
yeah.
That's exciting. I mean, we have an acting police chief with Marta Montalvo, but you're going to see May Walker was the only other woman who's ever been a constable in Harris County. Now to see Sylvia Trevino become the first Latina female constable and the second woman is exciting.
So the twist is that Sylvia Trevino used to work for Mary
May.
Walker.
Yeah,
So now they're going to be equals, so to speak.
that's correct.
Well, let me take that back because Precinct 6 never gets enough money
Right,
compared
Right.
to the other constables. Yeah.
right,
And that's another discussion. We can talk about that for a whole hour as far
Right.
as funding.
right.
All right. So the other race that probably most people haven't really heard about is some of the Harris County Civil Court judge races. Unfortunately, there was a sweep last election. Pretty much all the Republicans won. Now, in talking to you, you feel that there's going to be a lot of Democrats coming to the polls.
Yep.
And perhaps the Democrats that are running for judges, for the judge seats, might actually have a chance.
That's correct. I think they have, because remember in 08.
Oh, just about asked about 08. Didn't that happen in 08?
Yeah, in 08
Yeah.
we had a very similar sweep. We won the sheriff's office. We lost the district attorney's race. Bradford was our candidate then and didn't make it. But we won the sheriff's race. We won the county attorney's race. And then we won a slew, I think up to close to 7 or 8 or so judgeships. And then in 10, we lost several of them then. It's an off election year. Turnout is tough for the Democrats in that regard. And so we lost some of them. But I think we won a couple of them back in the 12 election cycle. And so I see there being a great opportunity to elect some judges, especially on the civil side, into the courtroom. So I think there's a great opportunity.
So in the future, supposedly the judge from Harris County, Judge Emmett, is going to retire. So we have an opportunity for a new blood, so to speak, to come in and take over that position. On the Democratic side, we haven't heard of a lot of names, but on the Republican side, there seems to be a little fight going on.
Mm-hmm.
People are positioning themselves to take over that seat. Supposedly, it's a Republican seat. That can change, though.
It can.
It can change.
It can change. You know, the opportunity. It all goes back to organizing the Latino community, organizing the Democratic Party, because you got to remember that the county judge's seat is up on off election years. And that's what makes it tough for Democrats to win. For whatever reason, we're not inspired. We're inspired during the presidential cycle, but we're not inspired during the non-presidential election cycle.
It coincides with the governor's race.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So what I've noticed is Judge Emmett has kind of changed his tone a little bit. He's not so much to the right. I mean, he's kind of moved to the
middle.
center.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I've seen him surrounded by Democrats. Some of the Democrats really like him, you know, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen as far as the new election coming up, but obviously he'll probably side with a Republican as an endorsement, right? But there's still opportunity for Democrats to take that seat. Now, the other race that people were talking about.
I'm sorry, Ben, but also, I mean, there's could be some Latino Republicans going for that.
That's
seat.
right.
That's true.
That's
Orlando Sanchez,
that's
is
right.
probably one of the
That's
names
right.
that pops up
You're
a lot.
absolutely right. You're
That's
absolutely
exactly
right.
right.
So
And I can say Orlando's been a friend of the East End. He really has.
yeah, he's stepped up. He's stepped up.
Sure has.
Yeah. So we've run out of time, guys.
Oh, you're kidding me. Man, we still got a few minutes.
We'll
man.
keep them on.
Where do we put another coin? Where do we put another coin into the
Another
machine?
coin into the meter here. Come on now,
All
guys.
right, we'll give them a few more minutes. How's that? You just put the coins right here.
Yeah,
The bills.
typical band, folks.
Just put the coin. We'll be all right. Now, I will tell you that the other race that's going to be very interesting, and you are very familiar with this race. A lot of people say that Congressman Gene Green's going to retire, and it's going to be an open seat. Now, no matter who has done what in the past, it's going to be a bloody race.
It
Okay?
will be a dogfight.
It's going to be a dogfight. I mean, I've heard all kinds of people interested in running for that seat. You know some of them very well. Considering that the Latinos are so splintered anyway, would it really make a difference if
You
it's a
know,
big dogfight?
it is going to be a dogfight. It's a primary election, so you will see the toughest part of the fight obviously be the primary side of this election. And you know, I was inspired to get in this race for a lot of reasons, mainly for all the policy and the service delivery, lack of service delivery to the community, highest poverty rates, lowest educational attainment, lowest home ownership rate, lowest medium income, all these issues that plague our community dramatically. And no one else, I mean, everybody thought the same thing I did when I got in it, but they sided with Gene for whatever reason. Now, and I thought, you know what, if it's going to be done, it's got to be done this way, because I don't want to fight another Latino in that way. It was a tough race for me. I had to be very candid with why I was passionate about this race. And I disclosed a lot of things a lot of people didn't know about our Democratic member of Congress. It was tough. I respect Gene as a person, but I just had to be a strong friend to say, you've been on the wrong side of some of these things. To that end, you're going to have Latinos, all who today are standing next to each other, run against each other in this next election, whenever Gene decides to vacate the seat. That's going to be, that always hurts our community. And if it's splintered today, it'll be worse tomorrow, and it's going to take a long time to bring it all back together. That was always my concern about waiting for that day that the seat would be vacated. That was always my concern. I didn't want to splinter the community, didn't want to drive a wedge between it. It happened anyway, but I hope that we'll figure a better way to achieve the prominence in that seat that we need.
You know, that's exactly, you know, what's probably going to happen. And you know, back in the original when the first race for that district with Ben Reyes and Fulgencio Reyes, you know, one of the things I talked to Fulgencio about that time. One thing he told me, he said, you know what, we need to learn that your opponent, just that he's your opponent. He is not your enemy. He said we do not need to cut as Latino. We don't need to just cut each other to pieces. I said we need to get beyond that and learn that. And I thought that was really, you know, wise for somebody that had been in the process to share. And so I hope that we can do that. I know we probably won't, but you know, and it seems like the person that tries to take the high road is the one that gets cut the most.
That's right.
You know, and I think we have, you know, I think Adrian could tell you that firsthand experience.
That's right.
You know, he tried to keep it up at a high level for the mayor's race, and they just cut him to pieces.
Exactly.
You know, they went after him. I mean, everybody from all sides. So
I know the feeling.
yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the mayor's race. Now, obviously, Sylvester Turner won the mayor's race. In your opinion, has he done a good job?
I think so. I mean, you know, look, who would ever predicted that he would have a severe, you know, series of rains and flooding occur almost right off the bat. Mm-hmm. But thankfully, he had at least a bit of a blueprint to follow, and that was what Mayor White and I created when we were in office, and we dealt with Hurricane Ike, Katrina, and Rita. And at least he
Rita didn't count.
Well, it did count. It did count. But you know, all that to say is that at least he had a bit of a plan on how to relocate folks immediately using hotel rooms, apartment complexes, and things of that nature. And he took on a challenge for what was the bane of Houstonians, and that is the potholes. But he did not predict that he would be walking into a $160 million budget deficit. He's got a proposed budget with one-time fixes, which is going to be a challenge. He's still going to have to lay off about 40 employees, as I understand.
Not to mention the pension.
But that's the challenge. Yeah. That's where his viability, or I shouldn't say viability, but that's where his mayoralship will be challenged, is how do you deal with the pension system and the challenges that it's posing on the city budget. That's
and all the promises you made during the campaign trail.
Exactly. That's really where he will ultimately be tested, because he's going to have to speak to the unions, all who supported him, and convince them that his opponents were right all along. In the fact that you have to deal with the pension, there's going to have to be some modifications, and so that's where I think that the ultimate test will be had. But I have always said that because of his tenure in the legislature, if there was anybody in the race that would be able to have the necessary relationships to fix the pension system, I believe that it would be Sylvester. How that ultimately plays up, because the pension systems are going to scare the employees and making them believe, because now look, he's an interesting movement has occurred on the municipal side. David Long has come back in as the executive director of the municipal system, and he was the person who in part created the problem that we have on the municipal side and in the pension systems overall. So to have that person come back in, it's going to be a real interesting process. I'll be watching during the legislative session to see how that progresses. But a real fix to the pension system will have to come about if he's to make good on the viability of Houston's financial future.
Obviously, whatever deal they make will not affect the past union members, correct?
Correct. It shouldn't. Not that it won't. So, it shouldn't.
So from here forward, those people will have less benefits, so to speak,
than
the ones previously.
That's correct. I mean, you got to remember that when I was trying to convince my friends on the firefighter pension side, I was telling them, look, I'm not out for existing retirees in any system, whether municipal, police, or fire. I'm not out for any of them. I'm not going to take anything that they have already earned. Existing employees who are already vested, God bless them. They have earned what they believe they're working for, and they got it. When I was on city council and Mayor White took the first shot at fixing the system, we did not impact any retiree. We did not impact any existing employee. The only place existing employees got impacted who were not yet vested was to move the timeline a little further down into the future. Instead of being vested at 20, you were vested at 25. And then the age changed as well. And so
it's age plus years of service
exactly
equals 70, 80?
80 points, I believe.
80,
yeah.
Okay.
And so that's the same, but we did make changes to incoming employees, new employees that did not exist in any of the systems. That is what still has to be done. The only pension system that has not been a partner in that regard is the fire pension. Police employees have pensions have agreed to some changes. Municipal employees pension system has agreed to some of those changes, but the firefighter has not, because it's controlled in the legislature. So that's really what has to be changed. But you got to remember that the ability to pay for those pensions, we have now up to $4 billion in unfunded obligations to the pension systems, and it's just growing. And then the what it takes to pay into the system every year, it's growing, and it is choking out all the other necessary systems or obligations that the mayor has to run the city. It's choking out the park systems, it's choking out the libraries, it's choking out the ability to hire new employees. So it is really where he will be tested the most, I believe.
Where did we have those missteps?
In 2001, when the changes were first made, we agreed that we would take existing pension systems from about 8% and 15% respectively, 8 being municipal and then 15 being fire and police. By 2004, when I got to City Council, instead of moving those from 8% to 10% or 12% and then 15 to like 18 and 15 to 18% for police and fire, they all got to like 50%, 30%, promises that were never made. And I always couched it as a moral dilemma for the pension systems, and that was that we never wanted to, when I was on City Council, my commitment to the employees was never to take away anything, but it was always to get back to what the deal was. And the deal was to move you to 10% and 30 and 15% or 18% and 18% respectively, not to 30 and 50%. And the way I couched it as a moral dilemma is like when you go to a store and you buy something, and then the cashier makes the change, and then you walk out the door and you say, "Wow, she gave me too much money." So do you keep the money, or do you go back to the cash register and say, "This is not my money"? Because the actuarial data in those systems was not accurately calculated, I think we're giving people money that we shouldn't be. And as a result, the question now is, how do we fix it so that we stay to the deal that was made, not to unintended benefits that are being given now?
Looks like we're going to have Pancho Claus here for 5 minutes.
Well, we got a few more than that, Ben. We'll talk fast.
So I appreciate you coming out as
No,
always.
thank you, Ben. Thank you for the invite.
Your friend and our friend, Richard Reyes, with Pancho Claus, as everybody knows him,
He's an icon.
is
icon.
here,
He
as you
is.
know. And
He
so
is.
we're going to give him the last 10 minutes of the show. How's that?
That sounds good.
So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Don't forget to vote.
All right.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back in a few
Javier,
minutes.
thank you, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It's always
Don't
good to
leave
have
us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, joined by my co-host, Mr. Javier Perez. And now we have our comedian from Houston, Jerry Carrillo.
What's up, everybody? Wait up, hold on real quick.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
You have to know Jerry. He always does stuff like that. And of course, Mr. Pancho Claus. Pancho Claus, thank you for coming out.
Latino Talk TV. I thought this was Latinos for Trump.
Jerry, you from Trump?
Latinos for Trump TV.
Is that what you're promoting?
Oh, no. Look, it says, I'm legal, fool. Google it. You don't believe me?
So Jerry has a comedy show coming up. And what's the date of it?
It's actually this Saturday at TBH. You know, it's actually, you know,
Talento Bilingüe de
Talento
Houston.
Bilingüe Houston putting it together and has some of Houston's finest comics out there. You know, Juan Villarreal, who the world already knows. You know, me, of course, Jerry Licious. Calm down, ladies. Calm down. I understand. We got Orlando Villarreal and we got Mario Sainz. It's going to be a great show.
Well, I've heard that we have another comedian in the house, Javier.
Javier,
Without-
okay.
Without trying.
Without trying-
Great personality, yeah.
So tell me, what's your involvement on this?
Well, I'm producing it.
Okay.
And really, it's a fundraiser for the TBH Summer Art Camp.
Okay.
We're hoping to start a mariachi group, and this will help us buy our violins and guitars and trumpets to get it going. And these guys have all been friends of mine for a long, long time, so they just stepped up to the plate and are going to do this show.
Ever since he was this high, huh?
Literally.
That was last week.
Last week, right?
Yeah, literally.
Is it a rated PG?
Uh,
Or kids can't go to
yeah,
the show?
no. Don't bring your kids. You know, we're not gonna have cribs that day. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, last time there was a show and the lady came with her little baby and it's okay. Sacola. I'm not gonna say it, but anyways. It was interesting.
Leave it to Jerry Licious, I tell you.
That's right.
So I know you've been in shows all over Houston. So what's the latest with you? We haven't seen you in a while.
Oh man, it's good. I got a real job.
Yeah, you're working for real now?
Yeah.
Are you
working-
Budweiser?
Budweiser, Bud Light, you know, I work for Silver Eagle Distributors, and yeah, we basically, our main contract is Anheuser-Busch.
You're the taste tester? Or?
I'm the taste tester, yeah. That's what I do all day. Just, a little bit here, a little bit there. Look, this one's not good. We're going to take this package, it's damaged. I'm taking it home. I'm going to recycle.
That's good. That's
I'm a giver, that's why.
good. So this show that you're putting on, I'm assuming it's going to be like 8 p.m. to 12 or 8 p.m.
Yeah,
to 11?
it's gonna be about that time, about 8
Okay.
p.m. And we're gonna go out. We're gonna just have a good time. You know,
Okay.
time. You're not gonna worry about time when you're there because you're gonna be having a great time.
So you're going to be selling tamales?
We're gonna
Because it's
sell-
dinner time. You know,
That's
8
dinner
o'clock.
time. That's afterwards. I'm gonna be out there slanging tacos, tamales. I wash dishes. You know, I sell chicles, everything.
Everything.
Whatever you need for the kids. It's for the
Are
kids.
y'all selling beer and wine? Or?
We will have beer and wine available there.
Okay, in case you don't know,
Complimentary.
Javier
I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Javier is the director of Talento Bilingüe Houston, so he's going to have it. He's going to fix it up for you.
You know, and I really want to thank Richard. Really, he really stepped up and took the role as executive producer of this show to try to get. Look, guys, if you've never seen the show at Talento Bilingüe, it's a great place. The acoustics are fantastic. You know, every seat is a great seat. And, you know, it's not going to cost us a lot of money. I know we can't say price, but, you know, see our website. It's very affordable to come see this show. And Richard really got some great comics. And it's going to be a great show. I'm looking so forward to it.
Yeah.
So, you know, we appreciate that, Richard. Thank you for everything
And
he's
it's
put into it.
really a kickoff for our open mic night. A couple of weeks after that, we're going to start an open mic night. So for all you aspiring comics that are out there, our open mic includes poetry or rap or singing, whatever you want to do, spoken word. It's a good place every Wednesday, starting around 6:30.
So I can bring my band?
You can bring your band. This guy has sang for me on show. No, he rapped. He rapped. And
I saw that. I saw that.
I rapped with postcard
Yeah,
size
he had
cue cards. And yeah, that was funny, man. Don't show that video.
Ever.
Yeah, but you know what? Speaking of that, this gentleman here has done stuff throughout the year for the kids of Houston. Actually, as Pancho Claus, having free concerts at elementary schools and probably junior highs as well, right?
Navidad en el Barrio with Israel.
Navidad en Barrio, he's real big into. So this gentleman right here is an icon
You know,
from the
it's
Houston
amazing
community.
when people see Richard and they realize, hey, that's Pancho Claus. I mean, it's like their kids again. The mayor, we had Mayor Turner over at TBH for Cinco de Mayo, and he's in the middle of his speech. He looks and sees Richard, and he goes, and you can see the little kid in his face. He goes, hey, there's Pancho Claus. In the middle of his speech, he says this. Says, "Oh my God, Richard, like they're seeing Santa Claus." You know,
It works the opposite too. It works the opposite. I'll go to a club once a year, and some beautiful woman will start talking to me. I get out your flower, and then she goes, "You know, when I was a little girl, you came to my elementary school." I just get my walker and leave.
my walker. I'll get on, man. Unplug me so I can get on out of here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a line for you right there. For Saturday, there's a line for you.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Do you write your own jokes, or what do you do?
don't
I write. I stay writing every day. I used to have a little memo pad, but thanks to my new phone, I got a little pad thing in there, and I stay writing every day. You know, and just depending on the situation, the theme, hey, I'll start structuring my
Which
show.
is great because Jerry cannot read. So that's amazing.
Yeah,
You made little pictures.
Pictures. A cat or something.
Unfortunately, we run out of time. You can blame Adrian Garcia, by the way. Adrian Garcia took up your time.
But no. You still there? Is he still there? Okay, not there. Hijo, mi tía.
Guys, this coming Saturday,
8 o'clock.
11 o'clock, June 11th.
Yeah, June
8
11th.
o'clock. I mean, be there, guys, and just see our website, www.tbhcenter.org, and you can see the tickets there. Very affordable. We'd love to have you.
On that note, we'll see you next week. Live television every Monday night at 6 p.m. You can wave, Jerry. You can take your photo now.
I was saying